News on the go with Diamond TV, powered by MTN.
Good morning and welcome to News on the Go. My name is Darius Jonia and we are broadcasting to you live here at the Electoral Commission of Zambia, where we'll have an interview with Executive Director Patrick Shindano just to get an update as regards to the printing of ballot papers ahead of the 2021 general elections. We have received reactions from politicians as well as different stakeholders on this particular matter. Now, as you may be aware, the Electoral Commission of Zambia has actually recommended a Dubai-based company to print the 2021 ballot papers at a total cost of 84 million kwacha. So we'll just get an update from the Executive Director, Patrick Shindano, just to run us through the entire process of this particular awarding of the contract. Mr. Shindano, good morning and welcome to Diamond TV News on the Go.
Good morning, and it's a pleasure. Thank you for having us.
Pleasure's all mine. Politicians are already in the election mood, and as well as electorates, and we have actually, we are aware that you have recommended a Dubai-based company to print the 2021 ballot papers. Maybe you can just run us through the process.
First and foremost, I think it's important that the public understands this is a public notice that has been put out. And this is an intent on the part of the Electoral Commission to be able to award a tender or a bid, as it were, when the different competitors put through the different bids in terms of supplying of ballot papers and other services indeed. So this time around, what we have put out is a public notification that the Electoral Commission of Zambia intends to award these respective companies, including the one for ballot papers, and in this case, Algaria Printing and Publishing of India. And within that period of notification, public notification, we expect to receive any appeals, if any objections and so on, and whatever issues that people, general public may have, including those that participated in the bidding process, if they feel that they are more deserving than what the company that is being recommended to come forward. And after that process has been concluded, then and only then will we be able to conclude the procurement process and be able to indicate that yes, indeed, it's final. The award is going to Algaria of India. As you may know, and it's something that we also like to call upon the public, general public, to be able to follow these events. This was not an abrupt process of saying we're going to have this particular printing company undertake the exercise. The tender process actually started last year in September. And the advert ran for 2 months and concluded in November. And after that, we went into an evaluation process. And the evaluation process is a very rigorous process. But before I also get into the process itself, it's important that stakeholders understand that the mandate of printing ballot papers solely rests with the Electoral Commission of Zambia and nobody else. And therefore, it is actually guided by the Public Procurement Act, and we have to follow that to the latter. So it's a legal process and not what one would traditionally call as a stakeholder engagement process. So we have to run it. All the procurements that we do here have to be done through the Public Procurement Act process, as it were. So we had the preliminary stage in terms of assessing those that put in their bids. Of course, it goes to technical stage where we look at the specifications, and then we get into the commercial side of things to look at the values of these things. And initially, in the case of ballot papers, we had 11 bidders that put forward interest to be able to supply us both internationally and locally. And out of the 11, only 3 were successful into the technical stage. And only 1 managed to get to the commercial stage. And this is Algaria Printing of Dubai. And that is where we are currently. And after that, we have now put forward a public notification of intent to award the company, as it were.
The companies that pushed in their bidders, how many maybe local companies were able to bring in their submissions?
Local companies, I'll have to look at the documents, as it were. And just to correct, I think I mentioned Algaria of India. It's Algaria of Dubai. Yes, indeed. Yeah, so the local companies, I'll have to look at the evaluation documents. I must mention that the evaluation process, not even myself, I'm in that process. We have stakeholders that basically come together to do the evaluation process. And only in the procurement committees, that's where I basically come to see who has been evaluated and who is perceived to be successful at that particular stage. And also just to make it clear to the general public, because we have noted with concern a lot of allegations, especially targeted at the commission chairperson, which is very unfortunate. I must mention that the commission members do not participate in any procurement processes. Especially the chairperson doesn't even come anywhere near procurement processes. The only time he gets to know of who the successful candidate is just as is also at the same time that the general public also gets to know when the notice is in the newspaper. So it is extremely unfair, and I think the public needs to understand these processes so that they appreciate what is involved, but also help us in enhancing the electoral process, as it were, so that we don't create negative perceptions there in terms of how the process runs, and thinking that there is anything malicious in terms of the procurement process, as it were. The procurement process is a very competitive process, open, internationally open bidding process. So it does not exclude whether you're international, you're locally. As long as you meet the specification, you will be considered accordingly. But what will not happen is that we will not flout, first and foremost, the law in terms of the Public Procurement Act, and we will not basically kind of lower the standards in terms of what is required on the technical aspects of the bidding process, just to be able to accommodate one particular company or the other. It has to be a very competitive process, and they have to make sure that they meet the required specifications, because the elections, as you know, are very competitive, and we need to ensure that we deliver credible elections. And if the printing company is found wanting, that is also going to affect the credibility of elections. So it is an area that we cannot compromise. It's an area that we don't pick or pick companies that are going to print ballot papers, and that must be understood by the general public as well.
Since the notice was advertised in papers, have you received maybe any objection on the awarding of this particular contract?
As of now, not yet, but obviously that is something I also need to cross-check with the procurement department, because those objections would come through the procurement, so we'll have to check with them if there's any. But as of now, nothing has come to my attention that we have any objections, and we hope it stays that way.
All right, so you've given us a deadline of 21st January as a deadline for you receiving the objections. What could be maybe, your words to the people that would want to be involved in this particular matter?
Well, I think first and foremost, like I said, it's people taking interest in the whole electoral process. You get, for example, now as it stands, you get the perception as though the printing of ballot papers was just decided overnight. But this is a process that started last year in September, and it was publicly put out in the newspapers. The advert ran for 2 months, and it shows that people are not interested in what is going on, and this is what we are calling for. Please get involved in these processes, understand what is happening, so that you appreciate. At the end of the day, you don't come and cry foul that something is going wrong or something underhand is being done. I think it's extremely unfair, and what we want to do is enhance the electoral process. Let's work together. Let's ensure that citizens participate. If there's any information that you want, come through, and we'll be able to gladly provide that information. And if there are gaps that you think are there within the way we are doing things, bring them forward, so that together we can enhance the electoral process. At the end of the day, what we want to have is credible elections that are going to meet the aspirations of the Zambian people, as it were, in line with the mandate that we were given as a commission. So what's key is for stakeholders to come forward and not just complain on social media. I think it's not helpful to anybody.
Maybe people were waiting for the Electoral Commission of Zambia probably to have a press briefing where they are able to announce all these things, unlike, putting a notice in a newspaper.
No, press briefings we do. I'm sure your media colleagues know very well that press briefings are done, but also public notifications speak to the general masses as opposed to just the media. So when we put out press out there saying this is a process that is going on, somebody needs to follow it through. So like in the case of procurement process where we're saying, okay, we are now inviting bids. We have put out a tender document. Somebody should be able to look at that document and interrogate it and say, okay, what is the requirements? Does it meet the required aspects or aspirations of the Zambian people? Is it transparent enough? Is it inclusive enough? And so on. So that when we come to the stage of award, as now we are getting to, where you now start saying, no, involve us, it's a little too late a process. So we expect that as we are moving forward, especially into 2021, and this is why we have kept on re-emphasizing stakeholders need to get involved in this process. They need to appreciate whatever is going on at the Commission so that we take out all these negative perceptions. There's so much negative perceptions out there that are really unfounded. For instance, like I just mentioned, if you read now social media, it's busy talking about the chairperson getting involved in procurement when the innocent man doesn't even come anywhere near procurement process. So it's very unfair for the public to basically be making up stories which are unfounded, and it's important that stakeholders come forward. If you have any issues, please come. If you require information, the Commission remains open. And this is something that we've re-emphasized and re-echoed. We are an open institution and we'll provide that information. It is not closed. And I'm sure even when you came in here, people were very welcoming. And this is what we want to see, that we can promote that necessary dialogue.
Shindano, thank you so much for having an interview with us here on Diamond TV News of the Go. Maybe you can have your last words to the people that are watching us live.
Yeah, thank you so much again for coming through and according us this opportunity. For the general public, we are now in the process of preparations for 2021 general elections. There are a lot of interest there, and there are a number of processes that are starting, that we're kick-starting off, including voter registration. And we will be basically putting out a lot of information on different platforms, mainstream media, social media. So they need to really keep an eye on these things, and if they see that there are gaps that have been identified, like I said, the key is to be able to spell those gaps out and not just say cry foul, the common song of rigging, which is very unfounded. And I think if we continue creating this narrative around elections, it does not only just affect the credibility of elections, but also our future development as a country. As you know, one of the fundamental principles of a democracy is being able to conduct credible elections. And credible elections is not just about the polling day, it's all about these processes and the perceptions that are held out there. And we hope that we can build the necessary confidence, and that can only be done if stakeholders come on board and appreciate what is going on.
Right. Thank you so much, Mr. Shindano.
It's a pleasure, and thank you for having me.
All right. So you have been watching a News on the Go with me, Darius Jonya, and I just, from having an interview with the Executive Director of the Electoral Commission of Zambia, Mr. Patrick Shindano, just highlighting or giving us updates as regards to a company that has been recommended to print the 2021 ballot papers, and he has disclosed to us that yes, it is a Dubai company, Algare, and come 21st January, they will be able to close the deadline in which people can be able to object or give an objection on their intentions to have this particular company be able to print the ballot papers. And his call is actually for stakeholders to be involved in this process. And he has actually assured us that it will be indeed a transparent election come 2021. This has been me, Darius Jonya.
News on the Go with Diamond TV. Powered by